They slid a single penny toward me, 1 cent, while handing my cousin a check big enough to buy a beach house. My aunt actually laughed as the coins spun across the table. "Symbolic," she said. "That's all she's worth." Everyone joined in. Everyone except the lawyer, who kept glancing at the sealed letter my grandmother left only for me. I didn't say a word. I just placed the penny on its edge and watched it stand perfectly still. My uncle frowned. "What does that mean?" I smiled. "It means Grandma knew exactly what you did." And that's when the room went silent, because they knew it too. When people see me now, they assume I grew up in some cold, loveless household. But that's the thing, my family wasn't heartless. They were warm, generous, affectionate, just never toward me. I grew up in Santa Mariela, a coastal California town where families hosted block parties, kids biked in packs, and everyone knew which households baked cookies on Fridays. Ours was one of those families, the Vargas family. My uncle Rafael was a local businessman. My aunt Camila played hostess better than anyone. Their son Mateo practically had a spotlight following him everywhere. And me. I was the extra chair no one bothered putting away. My parents died when I was 5, and because no one else stepped forward, my aunt and uncle took me in. People praised them for saving me. They loved the story of their kindness more than they ever loved the actual child it involved. I learned quickly that gratitude had an expiration date, and mine was up before kindergarten ended. Still, I tried. I was the quiet kid, the rule follower, the one who didn't ask for new shoes even when mine split open at the seams. I became the helper, the errand runner, the dishwasher, the sitter when adults needed a night out. They never said it, but I knew Mateo was the life they chose. I was the responsibility they tolerated. He thrived on attention, athletics, drama club, student government. There wasn't a trophy he didn't win or a spotlight he didn't enjoy. Meanwhile, every accomplishment of mine dissolved before it even landed. I remember being 12, walking into the living room holding a certificate for earning top scores in my grade. Camila didn't even look up from adjusting Mateo's bow tie for his choir recital. "That's nice, Lucia," she said. "Leave it on the counter." By dinner time, the counter was cleared and the certificate was gone. No one asked where it went. But someone did notice. My grandmother, Esperanza. She was my father's mother, a small woman with soft eyes and a voice like slow, drawn honey. She lived in a cabin outside of town nestled among eucalyptus trees. When she hugged you, you felt held, not squeezed, not displayed, just held. She always made room for me, even when the Vargas household couldn't be bothered. I'd visit on weekends. She'd let me sit at her kitchen island while she chopped herbs or folded dough. "Tell me about your week," she'd say, not out of politeness, but with genuine interest, like every small detail mattered. If I mentioned something painful, Camila brushing me off again, Mateo claiming credit for something I'd done, she wouldn't rush to defend them. She simply listened, then gave small pieces of advice that sank in deeper as I got older.
"Silence isn't weakness, mi cielo.
It's observation. People who need to be seen forget to look. You carry what they don't understand. That scares them more than you realize." Those weekends saved me. But they also highlighted something I couldn't escape. The Vargas house wasn't dysfunctional, it was selective. There was enough love for Mateo, enough pride, enough resources, enough celebration. But I received whatever was left over, if anything at all. And when you're a child, that becomes your normal. The first major sign of exploitation didn't come from a dramatic moment. It came from a birthday party. My 16th. Camila announced just a week before that we wouldn't be doing anything big because finances were tight. I shrugged it off, expecting nothing was safer than hoping for something. But on the morning of my birthday, I woke to the sound of voices outside. Laughter. Music.
Cars pulling up.
I peeked through my window and saw balloons, catering vans, a rented tent. For a second, stupidly, I thought it was for me. Then I spotted the banner, "Congratulations, Mateo." My birthday was simply the most convenient day for his early college acceptance celebration.
When he opened gifts that night, an expensive watch from Raphael, a new guitar from Camila, someone asked where my presents were.
Camila smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, Lucia doesn't care about things like that. She's very low maintenance." And everyone nodded as if she'd explained me perfectly. But the real turning point, the moment I realized my place wasn't temporary or accidental, came during my senior year when college decisions rolled in. Mateo wanted to study film. He got into a flashy arts program with a brutal tuition bill. Raphael and Camila didn't blink. They wrote the first semester's check that same week. When my acceptance letter came from a solid university with scholarships already covering most costs, I approached them nervously, hoping for a little support with the remainder. Raphael skimmed the numbers, pressed his lips together, and handed the paper back. "We've invested a lot in Mateo already. We can't stretch ourselves thin for your goals." Goals. The word tasted sour in his mouth. I ended up deferring enrollment for a year, working 2 jobs, saving every dollar. I commuted from the cabin where my grandmother insisted I move in for the sake of peace and possibility. In those years, she taught me practical things: budgeting, boundaries, the difference between being helpful and being used. She taught me about the Vargas family's history too, not gossip, but truth. "They love legacy," she said once, stirring soup. But legacy built on image is like a house built on sand.
When she grew ill, only I visited consistently.
Mateo stopped by for photos to post online. Camila came to check in, but spent more time complaining about hospital parking than asking how my grandmother felt. And Raphael treated her illness like a financial inconvenience.
The night before she passed, she squeezed my hand weakly.
"I know what they've taken," she whispered, "and I know what they fear." I didn't understand then. But I did later, when the will was read, when the 1-cent coin clattered toward me, when my uncle and aunt laughed like it was all some cosmic joke. Their laughter didn't hurt. It was familiar. Expected. What shook me, what cut through the numbness, was the sealed letter with my name on it. The envelope she'd left behind with instructions only I would receive. The slight, unmistakable tremble in Camila's smile when the lawyer handed it to me. Because for the first time in my life, they were afraid of something that belonged to me. Everything that happened after that, the unraveling, the truth, the quiet shift of power, started long before the will reading. It began the moment someone finally saw me for who I was, not who they needed me to be. And she left me the tools to finish what she couldn't. The weeks after the will reading felt strangely quiet, not peaceful, but tense, like the air just before a summer storm breaks open. Raphael and Camila weren't openly hostile toward me. They didn't need to be. Their indifference had always been sharper than any argument could have been. But something in the house changed. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was monitored. It started small. Camila began asking where I was going, what time I'd be back, who I was meeting. Questions she never asked Mateo, not even once. Raphael watched me when he thought I wasn't looking, as if waiting for me to slip to confirm whatever threat he imagined I posed. And Mateo. He avoided me. He wasn't scared of me. He was scared of what my grandmother might have told me. The letter still sat folded in my backpack, its edges softening from being read so many times. It didn't contain accusations or instructions. Just coordinates handwritten in her soft, looping script and a single line beneath. For when they pretend too loudly. At the time, I wasn't sure what she meant, but the Vargas house was getting louder in all the ways that mattered. The first real shift came when Raphael asked to talk. I found him waiting in the living room, leaning against the fireplace like a man delivering a business proposal rather than a family conversation. "Lucia," he said calmly, "we need to clear the air." I sat across from him. Not because I wanted to, but because walking away would have given him a story to twist later. He steepled his hands. You received something from Esperanza's estate that we were not expecting. Meaning they didn't like it. He tried to sound reasonable. You're young. Emotional. Grief can make us misinterpret things. If there's anything you feel confused about any property accounts documents, we can help you sort through it. There it was. Not generosity. Control. I'm not confused, I said.
Raphael blinked as if the sentence genuinely didn't compute.
Camila floated in from the kitchen with 2 mugs of tea, one for Raphael, none for me. She perched beside him like a decorative pillow.
It's softy.
Your grandmother kept a lot of old files. Our family handled most of her affairs for years. If you bring everything here, we can help you understand what's important and what's sentimental clutter. I met her eyes. You mean you want to see what she left me?
Her smile didn't falter, but her fingers tightened around Raphael's sleeve.
Mateo chose that moment to wander in, pretending he'd just woken up. His gaze flicked between his parents and me, trying and failing to mask his interest. Is this about the letter? He asked casually. Camila glared at him. Raphael cleared his throat. We just don't want you to feel lost, he insisted. We've always taken care of the family's assets. Assets. Setsei. Not people.
Not relationships.
Assets. I stood. I appreciate the concern. I have everything handled. Camila's voice thinned. You're making this harder than it needs to be. No, I replied, my voice calm and steady. I'm keeping it exactly as it needs to be. That conversation marked the beginning of the end, not of our relationship, but of their illusion that I was manageable. The next pressure came financially. A week later, Camila left a stack of envelopes on the dining table. Bills, receipts, household expenses, all things she normally handled. We thought since you're living here, you should contribute, she said, when I found her in the kitchen. I pay rent, I reminded her. Yes, she said quickly. But rent is just the starting point. There are utilities, maintenance, groceries, things you benefit from. It's only fair, dear. Fair. A word she wielded like a knife, with a floral handle. I'll cover my expenses, I said. Send me my share directly. I'll transfer it.
Her lips tightened.
That's not how we do things. Meaning she didn't want help. She wanted access. She wanted to know where my money came from, where it went, what I was saving, what I was hiding. She wanted to pull whatever thread she could find. But I knew better.
Years of being the extra had taught me how to manage without being noticed.
I'd kept meticulous records of my work earnings, school grants, everything. My finances were clean and tucked away. And that made them nervous.
The emotional manipulation came next.
Mateo started inserting himself into conversations he would have ignored before. You've been different lately, he said one night as we passed in the hallway. I've been busy. With what? He wasn't asking out of curiosity. He was checking to see if I would slip. He tried to soften it with a grin. You know, Mom and Dad only want what's best. No, I said gently. They want what's easiest. His smile faltered. Mateo was never cruel the way Raphael and Camila were. His harm was quieter complicity, disguised as cluelessness. He'd been raised believing that everything naturally flowed to him, because why wouldn't it? Whatever you think you know, he said softly, just be careful. People get weird about inheritances. People, meaning them. I let the warning pass without responding. Because the truth was clear, they weren't afraid of money. They were afraid of what my grandmother knew. The moral line was crossed 3 days later. I came home from class to find my bedroom door slightly open. Not wide. not obvious. Just enough to suggest carelessness for anyone who wasn't paying attention. But I paid attention. Inside, nothing was missing. Nothing was overturned. But my backpack, the one with my grandmother's letter, was zipped halfway open. Someone had been digging. Someone had searched through my things carefully, surgically, trying not to leave evidence. They didn't know I kept the letter with me at all times. I stood in the middle of my room, staring at the slightly shifted objects on my dresser, the faint fingerprint smudge on my desk, the displaced corner of my notebook. This wasn't concern. This wasn't family. This was surveillance. A quiet violation with loud intent. And it snapped something clean inside me, not anger, not fear, but clarity. They weren't trying to protect the family. They were trying to protect themselves from the truth my grandmother had passed to me. And that's when I understood. This wasn't an inheritance dispute. It was a cover-up. A long, delicate one. And they were realizing they no longer controlled all the pieces. The night everything snapped didn't come with shouting. It came with applause. Raphael and Camila hosted what they called a family appreciation dinner, a phrase so polished it sounded rehearsed. They claimed it was tradition, something my grandmother would wanted.
But nothing about it felt like her.
Her gatherings were simple, warm, genuine. This one was staged. Guests filled the house, neighbors, co-workers, church friends, all people who believed the Vargas family was exemplary, generous, united. People who thought Mateo was golden. People who looked at me and saw nothing at all. I kept to the edges, carrying plates, refilling drinks, helping their guests, as if I were staff instead of family. It wasn't new. But tonight, the energy was different, charged, strategic. And then Camila called everyone into the dining room. Before dessert, she said, voice bright and trembling with fake modesty, Raphael and I want to make a little announcement. Mateo stood beside her, adjusting the cuff of his brand new blazer, the one Camila insisted was an investment in his future image.
Raphael cleared his throat theatrically.
As many of you know, our dear Esperanza's estate came with some complex responsibilities. The room nodded politely. And we're proud to say, he continued, that Mateo has stepped up to take on the bulk of them. He will be managing the foundation liaison work moving forward with our full guidance. My chest tightened. The foundation, my grandmother's legacy, had been left to me. Not Mateo. Me. But here they were announcing his leadership, rewriting my inheritance in front of a room full of people, turning truth into spectacle, turning me into a ghost before I could even open my mouth. Someone clapped. Then more joined. A soft wave of approval spread across the room. Mateo beamed, soaking in the attention. Camila dabbed at her eyes. Raphael placed a proud hand on Mateo's shoulder, like he was presenting the future of the family. Then Camila added casual as exhale, and of course Lucia will help with administrative tasks. She's wonderfully reliable with the small details. Laughter. Soft. Harmless. Knives dipped in honey. A woman nearby said, "Oh good, she has something to do." Something inside me went very still. It wasn't humiliation. I'd survived worse. It was recognition. Not one person looked my way. No one questioned the lie. No one wondered why I wasn't standing with them. My grandmother's words came back sharply for when they pretend too loudly.
This was the moment she'd prepared me for.
I set the plate I was holding onto the table. Slowly. Carefully. Like I was placing down the last piece of a puzzle.
Raphael noticed first.
His smile flickered. "Lucia, why don't you say a few words?" he said, tone edged with command rather than invitation. Camila's eyes were bright, too bright. And I suddenly saw the truth. This wasn't an impulsive announcement. It was planned, coordinated, a strategy to box me in publicly before I could reveal anything privately. They wanted witnesses. They wanted their version of the story cemented. Mateo turned toward me, waiting for my gratitude, expecting me to smile and accept my assigned role. My palms tingled. My heartbeat slowed. A cold, calm clarity settled over me, the same clarity I used to feel sitting beside my grandmother at her old kitchen table while she solved crosswords upside down as a personal challenge. I stepped forward. The room quieted, expecting docility, approval, a rehearsal of the script they'd written for me. But instead of speaking, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the key. The key to my grandmother's locked cabinet, the one thing they didn't know I had.
The one thing they were terrified existed.
I held it lightly between my fingers, not raising it high, not flaunting it, just letting it catch the light as I turned it.
Raphael's voice cracked first.
"Where did you get that?" Camila went pale. Mateo's smile dropped clean off his face. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The room watched confusion ripple across their perfect facade. It was small. Just a shift, a twitch, but enough for anyone paying attention to realize something wasn't right. Someone whispered, "Is that a safe key?" Another guest murmured, "What's going on?" Questions. Doubt. Hairline fractures in their carefully crafted narrative. Camila tried to recover, laughing a little too loudly. "Oh, that just a keepsake, nothing important." But her voice shook. I finally spoke softly, evenly. "I think we should save announcements until everything is settled properly." A simple sentence. Neutral. Undeniable. Yet it landed like a shatter across the room.
Raphael's jaw locked.
Camila clenched her napkin. Mateo took half a step back.
They knew right then that I hadn't been confused.
I hadn't been emotional. I hadn't been lost. I'd been watching. And now I was done pretending. The applause died. People exchanged uneasy looks. The room swelled with the exact silence my family feared, silence that wasn't compliance but consequence. For the first time, I saw something in Raphael's eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger. Not superiority. Fear. I placed the key back in my pocket, turned toward the hallway, and walked out of the room, slowly, deliberately leaving their guests baffled and their perfect narrative collapsing in on itself. And as I stepped away, I realized something with absolute final clarity. This wasn't an accident.
This dinner wasn't a celebration.
It was a plan, one designed to erase me entirely. But plans only work when everyone follows the script. And I had just burned their script in front of their audience without raising my voice once. Say Part V when you're ready to continue. The morning after the family appreciation dinner, the Vargas house felt different. Not busy, not tense, but anxious. As if the walls themselves had stayed up all night, wondering what I was planning to do. I didn't speak to anyone at breakfast. I didn't need to. My silence was no longer background noise. It was a presence. A shape in the room. A reminder that I held something they couldn't define or control. Raphael pretended to read emails on his tablet, but his eyes flicked toward me every few seconds. Camila kept rearranging the same stack of napkins on the counter, her hands trembling ever so slightly. Mateo hovered by the refrigerator, watching me like someone observing a fuse they weren't sure had already been lit. I finished my coffee, slowly rinsed the cup, and set it on the drying rack. Then I said, calm and clear, "I'll be gone most of the day. Don't wait up." Camila stiffened. "Where are you going?" "Taking care of things my grandmother entrusted to me."
Raphael swallowed.
Mateo shifted uncomfortably. I didn't offer another word. I left the house with my bag slung over my shoulder and my grandmother's folder tucked safely inside. The coastal morning air was crisp, the kind that smelled faintly of salt and eucalyptus. I drove straight to the cabin, to the only place that had ever felt like mine. Inside, sunlight filtered through the lace curtains in soft, warm strips. The old table where my grandmother and I used to drink chamomile tea was still covered with her embroidered cloth. I sat down and laid out everything she'd given me: the original letter, the key, the second sealed envelope I hadn't opened yet, and the documents I'd quietly gathered over the past month. The quiet here wasn't threatening. It wasn't judgmental. It was steady, grounding, familiar. I opened my laptop and began the next phase, not loud revenge, but administrative precision. First came the emails. I drafted each one carefully, keeping my tone professional and devoid of emotion. Emotion invites argument. Precision ends it. The Foundation's trustees received a formal notice. Effective immediately, all inquiries, decisions, and communications regarding the Esperanza Navarro Foundation must be directed exclusively to Lucia Navarro, the appointed primary inheritor and designated authority. No embellishments. No explanations. Just legal fact. I sent a second email to the accountant my grandmother trusted, a meticulous woman named Dr. Naomi Kwan.
I attached the scans of every document I'd found in the locked cabinet, along with notes highlighting inconsistencies, suspicious transfers, and questionable advisory memos tied to Raphael and Camila.
Her reply came within minutes. Received. I will compile a full audit and prepare accompanying affidavits. Please do not share these documents with any other party until the review is complete. Also, your grandmother was very wise to choose you.
Naomi.
My throat tightened, but not with sadness, with affirmation. For once, someone wasn't telling me I was too quiet, too passive, too small. They were saying I was right. Next, I sent notice to the legal representative listed in my grandmother's directives. A new attorney, one Raphael, didn't know a woman named Alina Herrera who specialized in estate protection and fraud recovery. I attached everything. Her reply was just as swift. Please come to my office today. There are directives we need to implement immediately. I closed my laptop, breathed deeply, and finally opened the second envelope my grandmother had left. Inside was a single sheet of paper, written in her elegant, slanted handwriting. Mi cielo, you saw what others didn't want to see. You listened where others shouted. Now finish it with grace. Do not fight them. Let truth do the work.
Below the signature was a small list of names: board members, trustees, auditors, people she trusted.
And one final line. You will not be alone. A strange warmth washed through me.
She hadn't left me weapons.
She'd left me allies. I spent the rest of the morning driving into town, meeting with Attorney Herrera in her sleek office overlooking the harbor. She examined the documents with razor-focus intensity. Your grandmother documented everything, she murmured. This is airtight. She prepared formal notices revoking Raphael and Camila's advisory privileges, restricting their access to financial accounts, and freezing any transactions related to the foundation or the cabin property. She handed me a folder with notarized copies. Deliver nothing yourself, she warned. All notices will be served professionally. Your only job is to stay calm. That's what they'll hate most. I smiled faintly. I can do calm. Her lips curled. I see why she chose you. When I returned to the cabin, exhausted but steady, I found someone waiting on the porch. Mr. Beltran, my grandmother's oldest friend. He stood with his worn cap in his hands, eyes warm, his presence quiet as always. I heard the storm starting, he said softly. Thought you might want company. I didn't know I needed support until he offered it.
He stepped inside like he belonged there because he did.
He had known my grandmother for 50 years. We sat at the old table. He didn't ask questions. He didn't pry. He simply nodded when I explained the steps I'd taken. "Your grandmother was proud of you," he said. "She told me once that you had the patience of still water. Still water doesn't break things. It reveals them." My chest warmed tight and aching. "I don't want to destroy them," I said quietly. "I just don't want them to keep destroying what she built." "That," he murmured, "is enough." His presence steadied me. It reminded me that what I was doing wasn't spite, it was stewardship. When he finally stood to leave, he touched my shoulder gently. "They never expected you to protect yourself. That's their mistake. Use it." As night fell, I returned to the Vargas house, not as a supplicant, not as someone begging for space, but as someone reclaiming what was hers. I walked in through the front door. No sneaking, no slipping in quietly.
My footsteps were deliberate.
Raphael looked up from the dining table. Camila clutched her phone tightly. Mateo froze at the sight of the folder under my arm. Before any of them could speak, I set the folder on the table with a soft thud. "Professional notices will arrive tomorrow," I said calmly. "Your access to the foundation has been revoked. All accounts are frozen pending audit. I'll be moving out within the week." Camila's eyes widened. Raphael's jaw snapped shut. Mateo stared like I'd transformed into someone he'd never met. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain. I didn't justify. I simply ended it. Then I turned and walked away, not running, not trembling, just steady. The power shift wasn't loud. It was clean. It was inevitable. And it was only the beginning. The confrontation didn't happen in the Vargas house. They would preferred that home turf, familiar walls, a kitchen counter to lean on while pretending to be reasonable. No. The final reckoning happened somewhere they couldn't control. At the Santa Mariela Cultural Center during the annual Founders Gala, a polished event packed with local philanthropists, business owners, board members of the Esperanza Navarro Foundation, reporters, eager for quotes and donors, who adored my grandmother. She had chosen this event, this exact night, in her directives. Because she knew one truth better than anyone, some truths shouldn't be revealed in private. They need witnesses. I arrived early with Attorney Herrera and Dr. Naomi Kwan, each carrying their own folders, each representing a facet of truth Raphael and Camila had spent years avoiding. The auditorium glowed with warm lights and chatter. Guests sipped wine beneath portraits of community leaders. A large banner hung above the stage, honoring the legacy of Esperanza Navarro. And that was the poetic sting of it all. This wasn't just a confrontation. This was a public correction, a recalibration of truth in front of the very people my aunt and uncle had performed for their entire adult lives. They arrived exactly on schedule, Camila in a deep cherry red dress, Raphael in one of his best suits, Mateo in something stylish and eye-catching. They made their entrance like a trio walking a bright carpet, smiling, waving, schmoozing. They thought tonight would cement their status. They thought they still owned the narrative. Then they saw me. Not in a corner. Not serving drinks. Not fading behind them. But standing beside the board of directors and the foundation's attorney. Raphael's steps faltered. Camila's smile fractured. Mateo actually whispered, "Oh shit." Before they could approach me, the microphone on stage crackled.
"Ladies and gentlemen," the event coordinator announced, "please take your seats.
The program is about to begin." People moved toward the rows of chairs facing the stage. I sat in the front. Raphael and Camila took seats across the aisle. They wanted proximity control, the ability to whisper. Too late. When the lights dimmed, a short tribute video of my grandmother played photos of her at the cabin, kneading dough, planting flowers, laughing with neighbors. A quiet ache spread through my chest. Then came the moment. The board president stepped up to the podium. As many of you know, the passing of Esperanza Navarro left significant transitions within the foundation. Today we will be hearing final directives from her estate. Raphael straightened smugly. Camila dabbed at her eyes for effect. Mateo clasped his hands solemnly. They were performing. The president continued, "We will also address concerns raised during the preliminary audit." That's when their posture changed. Raphael blinked hard. Camila stiffened. Mateo swallowed. The president stepped aside and gestured. "Missy Herrera." Attorney Herrera walked to the podium, calm, steady, dressed in black. Her presence carried authority without theatrics. "Good evening," she began. "I represent the estate of the late Esperanza Navarro." She left behind detailed instructions regarding succession, governance, and oversight of all foundation-related matters. Her eyes flicked briefly toward Raphael and Camila, not accusatory, just factual. She continued, "Over the past several weeks, we have cross-referenced her personal records with official filings. During this process, we identified multiple inconsistencies in advisory activity carried out by Mr. Rafael Vargas and Mrs. Camila Vargas." A murmur spread through the room. Camila clutched Raphael's wrist. Herrera raised a single page. "This includes unauthorized recommendations, unreported conflicts of interest, and patterns of financial behavior inconsistent with ethical standards." Raphael shot to his feet. "This is outrageous," he barked. "You're misrepresenting." "Sit down the board," President snapped. It was the first time anyone had spoken to him that way in public. He sat. Camila looked like air had been punched out of her lungs.
Herrera continued, unbothered by the interruption.
"In accordance with Miss Navarro's instructions, the Foundation commissioned an independent audit." She nodded toward the front row. Dr. Naomi Kwan stood.
Her presence was quiet, unshakable. She walked to the podium with a folder pressed neatly to her chest.
When she began speaking, her tone had no drama, no malice, just devastating clarity.
"The audit revealed recurring anomalies," she said. "Specifically, advisory memos bearing Mrs. Vargas's signature that led to financial losses for the foundation and repeated invoice rounding that concealed unauthorized transfers recommended by Mr. Vargas." A gasp rippled across the room. Raphael's face drained of color. Camila trembled, tears balancing at the edges of her lashes, not grief but fear. Mateo looked as if he were shrinking inside his own body. Kwan added, "These irregularities align precisely with documents M's Navarro preserved in her private files, which were entrusted solely to her granddaughter, Lucia Navarro." Dozens of heads turned toward me. I didn't move. Not yet. Herrera returned to the podium. "The estate directives are clear. In the event of questionable activity, advisory privileges assigned to Rafael and Camila Vargas are revoked permanently." "No," Camila whispered. "Please." Herrera didn't pause. "Furthermore, contesting any ownership or inheritance triggers Clause 9, transferring all property, including the Vargas family's assigned real estate holdings, directly to the foundation." The room erupted into stunned chatter. Raphael lunged halfway to his feet again before the board president's glare nailed him to his chair. Herrera raised another document. "And now, Ms. Navarro's final designation." The lights dimmed slightly. A small projection screen illuminated with my grandmother's handwriting. Then her voice played. Clear, warm, unmistakably her. "If you are hearing this, then the truth has reached the right hands." My lungs constricted.
Raphael stared at the screen, jaw locked.
Camila shook her head violently. "My granddaughter Lucia has carried herself with honesty, patience, and humility. The foundation belongs in capable hands, quiet hands, the kind that do not seek praise but purpose."
Camila gasped, like she'd been struck.
My grandmother continued. I leave full controlling interest of the Esperanza Navarro Foundation to Lucia. She will act as primary steward. No other party is permitted to override her decisions. Silence blanketed the room. Heavy. Final.
Herrera stepped aside and gestured to me.
It was my turn. I rose slowly. Every rustle in the room quieted. I didn't go to the podium. I turned to face them, Rafael, Camila, Mateo, just a few feet away, close enough to see the cracks in their expressions. I never wanted a fight, I said calmly. I only wanted the truth honored. Camila's voice shook. We did everything for this family.
No, I cut in gently.
You did everything for control.
Raphael clenched his fists.
You think you understand what it takes to run a legacy. I don't think, I replied. I know, because she taught me. Not through money, not through praise, through trust. And trust is something you lost the moment you tried to rewrite her wishes. Mateo's voice broke. Lucia, please don't do this. I looked at him, not with vengeance, but clarity. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm doing what she asked. Then I offered the final boundary. This is the last conversation we will ever have about power. You don't have any over me anymore. Herrera addressed the board. All decisions henceforth are under Mess, Navarro's sole authority. The board president nodded. We recognize her leadership effective immediately.
The room applauded, not wildly, not joyfully, but respectfully.
I turned away from my family as Raphael's voice cracked behind me. Lucia, wait. Camila sobbed softly. Mateo whispered my name again, pleading. But I didn't stop walking. Some exits demand a backward glance. This one didn't. I stepped out of the auditorium into the cool coastal air, the noise fading behind me. The sky was clean open, stretching wide above the glittering harbor. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking away from something. I was walking toward myself. In the weeks after the Gala Santa Mariella settled into a strange, quiet one that felt as though the whole town was waiting to see how the pieces would land. Word spread quickly. Not because I told anyone, but because this town had always been built on stories and the Vargas family had given it plenty to talk about.
Raphael and Camila didn't appear in public for a while.
Their absence wasn't dramatic, it was strategic. They were regrouping, nursing their humiliation, trying to rewrite the narrative in smaller, safer circles. But no amount of revision could erase what had been played in that auditorium under that banner with my grandmother's name on it. Mateo tried to call once.
Just once.
I let it ring. Some things don't need to be reopened. Some endings need to stay closed so they can stay clean. Dr. Naomi Kwan and Attorney Herrera handled the remaining legal procedures with precision. My role was mostly to sign papers, review reports, and show up when things required an official face. It was strange after a lifetime of being erased to suddenly find my signature carrying weight. But the strangest part was how natural it felt. I moved out of the Vargas house within a week of the confrontation. I didn't take much, just my clothes, my books, my notebooks, and the objects that reminded me of my grandmother. The rest stayed behind. None of it belonged to me, not really. The cabin became my home. The first night I slept there, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt full, like the space itself recognized me. Sunlight filtered through the same lace curtains my grandmother once hung, and I found myself breathing a little easier each morning. I restored the herb garden she loved, replaced a few loose planks on the porch, fixed the squeaky hinge on the cabin door. These small repairs felt like conversations with her quiet, steady grounding. I took over the foundation's leadership, gradually, methodically. Not with bold announcements or sweeping changes, but with small, deliberate steps. I met with the staff, visited community centers, sat in on scholarship interviews. I learned how the programs worked and where my grandmother's heart had been anchored. Everywhere I went, people told me stories about her stories I hadn't known. Stories she never bragged about. Stories that made my chest ache with a softness I wasn't used to.